DoorDash's recent terms of agreement. Are you really treated legally as an independent contractor? We're going to talk about that on this segment of the Gig Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Now, I'm doing this particular segment of the Gig Geezer having just got finished with my Sunday hustle, my Sunday grind. Today is April 30, 2023. In fact, I completed one DoorDash order today. It happened to be a large order program opportunity. I know that there are certain people who are like, yeah, man, god damn it, yeah, you're on a large large order program. That's why you're able to talk that accept less, earn more shit. But that's not what I'm really. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But anyway, I noticed there have been some established YouTube content creators who have informed their audience recently about DoorDash's updated terms of agreement. One thing that can be said is that there will always be an updated version so long as DoorDash is in business. Now, this latest agreement was released on April 13th, 2023, or as of this documentation, about 3 weeks ago. Now, when I happened to see it, I went about a week before I agreed to the terms of agreement, and I actually took time to read a significant portion of it. It took me about 30 minutes, in fact. And I read it not only for my own understanding, but also with you in mind. Now, I've been guilty in the past of simply clicking the checkbox in acknowledgement and saying that I understood what I read, but I decided to take a little more time than usual. Essentially, as with all these apps, it appears that we have to agree to the terms of agreement before we actually are able to work the app, regardless of whether we really agree with it or not. Now, in this latest terms of agreement, as with many of them, one of the terms that you'll see a lot of is the word arbitration. Now, if you're new to the DoorDash app, it is actually the best and only time that you can opt out of arbitration. Any subsequent time in which you've accepted the terms of agreement, it means that any disputes will be handled through arbitration. And typically, we feel that arbitration is tilted towards the company. That's why they want to go through arbitration, because if we went to court, they would probably stand a chance of losing. Now, DoorDash is the big bad entity in that they command 65% of the market share in the United States. And while each company's terms of agreement are different, they may be all similar in terms of definitions and expectation of us drivers. Another thing that is mentioned on multiple occasions in DoorDash's current terms of agreement is that the orders we accept and complete are defined as contracted services, and the offers that we see on our screens are defined as contracted services opportunities. So, what does that mean? Each time we see an offer on the screen, it's actually a contract offer that we may agree or disagree, we may agree or decline to accept in order to render a service of delivering items or products to a customer who could be a business or an individual. Now, while some have completed DoorDash orders numbering into the tens of thousands, personally, I have declined DoorDash orders numbering into the tens of thousands. Translated, if it says according to the app that I've completed more than 5,600 orders, which as of today, that is the case, since I was onboarded in 2019, that actually means that I have declined more than 62,000 orders. And so what's the math to that? If when I turned on the app this morning, my acceptance rate was at 9%. As of now, supposedly it's at 11%, although I accepted only one order today. But based on that 9%, if you divide 0.09 into 5,600, you'll get about 62,000 plus. So that means, based on DoorDash's language, I have declined refused, or, and I'll even add, ignored more than 62,000 of these contracted services opportunities. Now, first thing to recognize is that DoorDash says in its recitals, which by definition gives a general idea as to what this contract is about, or as I previously mentioned in this segment of the Gig Geezer, it may also mention certain terms that are defined in the contract. The recitals in this contract actually comes out by saying, contractor understands and expressly agrees that they are not an employee of DoorDash or any restaurant, other business, or individual using the DoorDash platform, and that they are performing contracted services on behalf of themselves and their businesses, not on behalf of DoorDash. And you say, ain't that some shit? DoorDash is saying that you're not an employee, but there are things that DoorDash is doing to imply that you're an employee. That's interesting. That's an interesting contradiction. There's a little bit of hypocrisy in that, at least in my opinion. Also in the recitals, it says that we are free to select times we wish to be available on the DoorDash platform to receive contracted service opportunities. It says we're free to select the times we wish to be available. But I'm aware of DoorDash drivers who say that they feel that they have to maintain a very high acceptance rate, a minimum of 70%, in which they qualify to become a top dasher, so that they can have access to they can have access to the app anytime they choose. Interesting. You're not an employee, but yet you're somewhat you're somewhat ceding some of your power, some of your leverage as an independent contractor so that you can gain access to that app. It says we are free to negotiate our compensation by, among other things, accepting or rejecting the contracted service opportunities transmitted through the DoorDash platform. Now, interestingly, DoorDash refers to the app as a platform. We refer to it as an app. DoorDash also says in the recitals that we can make such decisions to maximize our opportunity to profit. Now, that's one thing that I'll give DoorDash, because I've said in my maximizing my opportunity to profit, my mantra has been accept less, earn more. Whereas DoorDash for a while was telling drivers accept more, earn more. Ain't that some shit? But DoorDash says it's okay to accept less to earn more. Now, it may not be dollar amounts, but I can say per order completed that I definitely earn more than a significant number of DoorDash drivers. And there are other drivers who have ascribed to this mantra that earn more per order than all of you who accept all those damn orders. Now, also in the recitals, DoorDash says that we have the sole right to control the manner in which contracted services are performed and the means by which the contracted services are completed in accordance with applicable laws. Now, DoorDash throws that in there because it knows legally that it has to acknowledge that we're independent contractors. And legally, at least according to the U.S. Department of Labor, we are independent contractors based on the definition that we individually control the manner in which we perform our work and how it's done. So that means that we have freedom of action. Okay. And I may mention that again at some point in this segment of the Gig Geezer. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. DoorDash says the agreement governs the relationship between DoorDash and contractors and establish both parties' rights and obligations. So that basically means that this agreement establishes the behavior by which both sides are to act in accordance with the agreement. So, moving to section 2 of this terms of agreement. Interestingly, DoorDash says nothing in its agreement in which it requires the contractor, you, me, us drivers, to perform any volume of contracted service, meaning that there's no quotas or minimum production requirements. And what I mean by minimum production requirement, the best way I can give you an example is as an insurance agent, depending on what contract I have with a carrier, and depending on how far up the totem pole that carrier is, and what the carrier may require of us agents, of us agency principals, is that we must write a certain amount of business each year in order to keep our contract with them. In fact, my first major contract was with Safeco, which really got me going as an agency owner, agency principal. So this was back in 2017. And having Safeco in hand opened the door for a lot of places for me. And I had to meet a production requirement. Anyway, with respect to gig food delivery work, DoorDash is not saying that we must complete a certain number of orders each month. DoorDash is not saying that we must complete a certain dollar amount of orders each month in order to remain active on the app. So that's what it means. DoorDash also says nothing in its agreement about guaranteeing us drivers that we will receive a certain volume of opportunities as well. Although I find that let me say that again. DoorDash says nothing in its agreement about guaranteeing us drivers that we will receive a certain volume of opportunities. DoorDash doesn't do that. But as drivers, many of us have recognized a change in the quality of orders and actually a volume of orders since it implemented that accept more, earn more program, or the diamond program, or whatever you want to call it. I personally have seen a significant decrease in the quality of orders, although it hasn't affected me because I work multiple apps. Do I still see large order program opportunities? Yes. Do I still see double-digit order opportunities? Yes, but maybe not as I used to. Although an argument can be made that there's been a shift in customer habits, shift in customer spending, and so they're not spending as much on these apps as they did in 2020 and 2021 when it was an absolute necessity for them to do that. Customers are now going to the stores. Customers are now going to the restaurants. And so, and given with the economic uncertainty, apps like DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, and Instacart is seen once again as a more so of a luxury than a necessity. Now, I just mentioned about quotas and minimum production requirements. Interestingly, DoorDash has abandoned that accept more, earn more language because that would actually run afoul with the U.S. Department of Labor. How would it run afoul? Because it affects how we would go about completing our work on the app. Now, according to the website, under the frequently asked questions, the term is now priority access. That's right. If you accept a bunch of orders, if you basically perform the role of a dutiful Tony Xu employee, and in doing so, he thanks you from the bottom of his wallet or his other financial instruments. If you maintain that 4.5 rating and accept at least 50% of the orders, the wording is that it will increase the likelihood of you seeing a higher paying order, which DoorDash never defines. In fact, they got rid of the language in terms of it may be based on a dollar ratio per mile. Because if anyone who's been on the app since the summer, they recall that they said basically we're talking about $1.50 a mile or more in most markets. Well, they've abandoned that language as well. So DoorDash only says that if you see a plus sign by that order, I guess highlighted in that green background with white bold font, that is when you know that you should be seeing a higher paying order, although it may not be higher paying. And if you check out in this segment of the Gig Geezer, I went into great detail explaining uh, what what is a higher paying order. It may be in relation to what the algorithm already knows about your order selection tendencies. But even then, a higher paying order for me would have to be something that's in the $20 range. Now, I don't see a steady diet of $20 orders. If anything, I'm going to see a bunch of two, three, four, $5 orders. And then every now and then I'll see that double digit order. And that's the one that I may give it a look. And then every now and then I'll see a large order program opportunity. Now, DoorDash also says in its wording that if you maintain a 70% or higher acceptance rate, you will have even more priority for higher paying orders. Never define exactly what is higher paying, but you'll have even more priority. So they say, according to the app, is that this is their way of rewarding drivers who provide high quality and meaningful customer service. Well, they also say that the qualification criteria may change. And what they said, their actual wording was the qualification criteria may change in the future, but I think they meant may change in the future. But anyway, moving on. Well, if that's the case, then I have, at least as of today, a 4.95 driver rating. Would that not qualify as providing meaningful customer service? But yet they're attributing an acceptance rate to meaningful customer service. That don't mean anything. You accept a bunch of fucking orders. That doesn't mean you're providing meaningful customer service. But to DoorDash, it means meaningful because that is what they're in the business of doing. Getting orders delivered. Even though they say that they're not a delivery service, they don't say they're a fucking delivery service and that they're merely a technology service that happens to pair individuals with businesses and all that, and they happen to make money doing it, which is they're full of shit. Okay, I'm just telling like this. DoorDash is full of shit, and they're contorting and twisting words to their advantage. Simple as that. Now, you've got to understand that these agreements have been combed over by and large by attorneys and advisors, levels of attorneys, levels of advisors. And the best way I can make a comparison is that in my experience, I once worked in a call center at the health insurance company here in South Carolina. And we come to learn that with certain claims of a dollar amount of at least 500,000, what happens is that those claims aren't signed off on the third floor, which is where I worked. Those claims weren't signed off by individuals in another office on the third floor. Those claims are signed off on the fourth floor where all the higher ups are. And they had certain criteria that must be met on those claims before they were signed off. Same thing with DoorDash. DoorDash knows what they're doing. They're not a multi-billion-dollar corporation for nothing. They have combed over the language of these agreements so that they may be vague enough in certain areas that it may cause enough ambiguity to which they can make a legal argument that may work in their favor. But you have to call bullshit where bullshit is. Now, while we may not be obligated to accept orders, but the way DoorDash is set up, if you go along with this, the way DoorDash is set up, and if you go along with it, if you want to be paid, guess what? You've got to do what they have set forth for you. Now, you may be exercising your right as an independent contractor, but the exercising of your rights are without much power and leverage. Now, I mentioned about the U.S. Department of Labor. I said the U.S. Department of Labor defines being an independent contractor as someone whose payer, in this case DoorDash, cannot control what work is done and how it is being done. Meaning that according to the U.S. Department of Labor, we have freedom of action. But DoorDash actually tries to control that freedom of action with the acceptance rates. with the estimated times of arrivals and sometimes squeezing of drivers when the estimated time of arrival is not adjusted for when you accepted the order and what the app is showing, meaning that contract violations, meaning that if you're more than 9 minutes, actually, once you're 10 minutes, 0 seconds late to a restaurant, you may incur a contract violation. Additionally, if you're 10 minutes, 0 seconds late to a customer and dropping off that order, you may incur a contract violation. Now, the thing is though, how does DoorDash control your freedom of action? It is when you cede your power and your leverage by accepting all those fucking orders just to say that you've gained top dasher status or that you may see supposedly higher paying orders. Now, there's people like myself and many others who have proven that accept less, earn more still works, and that working multiple apps and stacking multiple orders across multiple apps still works. But moving on, DoorDash adds in this, DoorDash, again, and I've mentioned earlier, DoorDash adds this language to cover its ass legally, but they are still subject to the scrutiny. When they say contractor is solely responsible for determining how to operate their business and how to perform the contracted services, that they put that there to say, hey, look, we're trying to comply with the U.S. Department of Labor. But the test is on you and me, and maybe even the U.S. Department of Labor, if there was enough people who would file complaints to them to prove that DoorDash is actually going against what the law says and going against its own contracts. So DoorDash says that we, as independent contractors, have the right to work multiple apps. But we also know that DoorDash, like many apps, namely like Grubhub and Waiter/Bite Squad /ASAP, they have incorporated ways to discourage drivers of working multiple apps. One of the ways is deactivating drivers based on acceptance rate and without appeal. What apps do that? Waiter/Bite Squad /ASAP. And to some extent, Grubhub does it. And I explained that. In this segment of the Gig Geezer, in that acceptance rates matter, yet for the wrong reasons. How does Grubhub do it? Since I threw it out there, Grubhub will deactivate a driver if they unassign themselves from a high ratio of orders in any given stretch. But that ratio is also based on acceptance rate. And so if you accept a low number of orders or complete a low number of orders and you've unassigned yourself from a higher percentage of orders, guess what? That's how you get deactivated. So indirectly, it's based on acceptance rate. Now, what about DoorDash? Well, DoorDash doesn't penalize you for a low acceptance rate, but DoorDash can get you for completing orders too late. And so the best way to avoid deactivation is to complete orders in a timely manner. Regardless of what some other drivers may say or describe what you do as dirty multi-apping, if you complete those orders in a timely manner, who gives a fuck what the other person says? Now, this is where accepting less, earning more actually has merit based on DoorDash's contract, because DoorDash cannot restrict someone from accomplishing this as a reality. Now, this leads me to how can a driver then be deactivated based on the terms of agreement and other information on DoorDash's driver portal? Number one, completion rate below 80%. Number two, driver rating below 4.20 after having completed over 100 deliveries on the app. A driver may be deactivated for producing social media content that is seen as discriminatory, harassing, deceptive, violent, or is illegal. Further language includes, according to DoorDash, under the title social media policy, in that they ask us to refrain from posting comments that contain comments, links, content, or images or videos that are obscene, basically sexually explicit, profane, vulgar, hateful in nature, and promote racism, sexism, hatred, or harm against any person, organization, or company. DoorDash also says in the terms of agreement that drivers cannot use services, meaning the app, to cause a nuisance, annoyance, or inconvenience. So here's where drivers get deactivated based on the language of the terms of agreement. If a driver records or documents through video them confronting a customer because they did not tip them, or they claim that they did not receive their order, and the driver goes back to the customer at their job or at their house, knock on their door, and now I got all this stuff documented on video, and then posts it on social media. Either way, if a driver goes back and knock on that door, they have created a nuisance, an annoyance, or an inconvenience to the customer. And if the customer reports that driver, that is grounds for deactivation. Now, what else can be said about deactivation? DoorDash does not say specifically, but I'm going to put it like this. If you're deactivated or there's suspicion, or DoorDash has suspicion of your work completed, DoorDash says that it has the right to adjust or withhold all or a portion of payment owed to the driver. If DoorDash says it reasonably believes that the driver has defrauded or abused or attempted to defraud or abuse the DoorDash platform or app. So there have been some noted drivers who have gone on YouTube and announced that they were deactivated. One driver was deactivated not once but twice, but the first time he was deactivated, $1,700 was withheld from him, and he's yet to see that money because DoorDash says it had reasonable belief that he defrauded the app by claiming that restaurants were closed just to get half pay, when in fact, in some cases, or in many cases, the restaurants were still open. Another driver was deactivated, and DoorDash has withheld, and he's not seen it, about $2,000. That's a hard motherfucking pill to take, man, if somebody takes that type of money. But that also says that these drivers are holding this money all week so that they can see this nice little deposit instead of withdrawing that money at the end of the day, or transferring that money at the end of the day. This is where you having that driver direct card, DoorDash direct card, is a benefit, because once you've logged out of that time slot, that shift that you've worked, that money goes directly to that card, which DoorDash can't fuck with. Or you can, once you've logged out, take the $1.99, take the loss on the $1.99 fee, which is actually tax deductible, and make sure that money goes to you instead of DoorDash. I can think of an experience already where of course I shared this in this segment of the Gig Geezer, how Waiter/Bite Squad/ASAP had deactivated me for the third time within a year. And the third time that they deactivated me, I just so happened to have withdrew the money or cashed out before I got that email, them telling me that I've been deactivated. So I'm always making sure that I get my money at the end of the shift or at the end of the day. And that's something that you need to do instead of waiting for that nice deposit at the end of the week, like if it's your paycheck. Fuck, you earn the money, get it. Don't let them get it before you get it. Now, another thing is that DoorDash may deactivate a driver if the driver does not maintain current insurance if operating a vehicle or motorcycle as required by law. DoorDash can do in insurance. We say that a person that they're someone who is a certificate holder of your insurance policy, it gives them notification if you fail to maintain insurance, and that they can terminate that contract with you until you show proof of having insurance. Well, DoorDash is not a certificate holder, but it can do random checks through the Department of Motor Vehicles. That is a part of your background check. Another reason for being deactivated is if you use another person's account. That is fraudulent. Now, in Section 3 of the terms of agreement, it says that if a driver fails to perform duties as per contractor service agreement for that order, the driver again, forfeits all or part of the agreed upon fee for that service. So basically, what DoorDash is saying, and I can understand where this argument comes into play. Think of it this way: you have someone who agrees to perform a service for you. The person does not perform the service. Should you still pay that person? You then hold the right, if you've entered into a legally binding agreement, to withhold all or part of that money until they complete the work. It is up to your satisfaction. Now, DoorDash is basically saying the same thing. Now, DoorDash stresses in this terms of agreement that we do not have any supervisors that we answer up to. We are, according to this agreement, co-equal independent business enterprises that are separately owned and operated. So that means that I'm a business enterprise, DoorDash is a business enterprise, and that DoorDash has extended an opportunity for us to enter into some type of partnership to make money. Now, here's something that that may be controversial. Some may not agree, but technically, as independent contractor, we assume all risks of damage or loss to equipment and to self when completing orders for DoorDash, unless as required by law, meaning that if there's some type of workers' compensation or accidental insurance required by law in a certain state, that DoorDash must offer to the driver. And like where I'm at in South Carolina, it's on us. That's right. That means that if you get hurt while completing an order for DoorDash, can't sue DoorDash. Can't go to DoorDash to pay for your medical expenses. Can't do that. Here's another thing. DoorDash has done what many companies have done in what I call the dominoes clause, in that when we agree to enter into um, when we enter into these types of agreements with DoorDash and other companies, we can't sue them for saying it was. We can't sue them as a cause of us basically killing somebody in the process of completing an order. Now, we talk about estimated times of arrivals. We talk about potential contract violations and how that plays on your mind and trying to get an order completed. From time now, what you got to understand is that while it may put a time squeeze on us, it may cause us to have some stressful moments. Essentially, it is our responsibility to be aware of any nuances with the DoorDash app. It is our responsibility to complete these orders in a timely and safe manner. DoorDash says in the contract, we agree to indemnify or reimburse, protect, and hold harmless. And this is a key word: protect and hold harmless. Hold harmless, meaning that basically, if if the shit happens, it it's not on them, it's on us. DoorDash claims zero responsibility, basically. That's what it means. And Amazon is notorious for these type of agreements. When you see these van companies out here with Amazon on there, regardless of what it, even though those have the vans are representing Amazon, because those vans are operated by third party vendors, like say myself, if I had a fleet of vans and I had employees working for me, as I'm in agreement with Amazon, if one of my drivers kills somebody in an accident, Amazon says that that's not that ain't on us. That's on you. That's on you. And that's what DoorDash is saying. So the language goes on to say they are we agree to indemnify, protect, and hold harmless for any and all claims, demands, damages, suits, losses, liabilities, and causes of action arising directly or indirectly from, as a result of, or in connection with the actions of, and I would say in parenthesis, us, including personal injury or death to any person, including the contractor and or their personnel, as well as liability arising from the contractor's failure to comply with the terms of this agreement. Additionally, that if some shit like that happens, guess what? DoorDash may withhold from paying us. That's right. So it's kind of a one-sided contract when you think about it. This shit is one-sided. Interesting to note as well, DoorDash stresses that it is a technology company. It says that we acknowledge that DoorDash is not a merchant, retailer, restaurant, grocer, pharmacist, chemist, delivery service, or food preparation business, and it has no liability for acts or omissions of any merchant or contractor. So basically, DoorDash is saying, hey, all we do is match a business or a person with a driver who agrees to deliver for an agreed upon rate of service. That's what DoorDash is saying. Now, this is where the arbitration agreements come in because arbitration tend to favor companies. If you were to take DoorDash to court, it may be a different story. Now, arbitration, and this is where I'm going to end this segment of the Gig Geezer. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome comments in the section below. According to DoorDash's terms of agreement, only new drivers can opt out. If you are a current driver and had accepted a previous agreement, then you or I cannot opt out of any new or successive agreement. According to DoorDash's language, it says arbitration is not a mandatory condition of the contractor's contractual relationship with DoorDash, and therefore each new contractor may submit a statement notifying DoorDash that contractor wishes to opt out and not be subject to this mutual arbitration provision. If you are an existing contractor and have agreed to a prior version of this agreement with DoorDash without opting out of mutual arbitration provision contained therein, you do not have an opportunity to opt out of this mutual. You do not have an opportunity to opt out of this mutual arbitration provision. If you are an existing contractor and have validly opted out of the mutual arbitration provision in a prior version of the agreement, DoorDash will continue to honor your opt out. Basically, if you're a new driver and you don't want to, if you want to maintain the right to sue their asses, take their asses to court, and not have to go through arbitration, you have 30 days to submit it in writing. So hopefully what I've shared in this segment of the Gig Geezer may be of some help, maybe of some information, maybe of some help and useful information to you. And if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane, and as always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.